Welcome to Module 5 of the Administration Code Regulations Training 703 KR 5080. My name is Shara Savage, a program consultant in the Office Assessment and Accountability, or OAA. In Module 5, I will cover what happens during the administration of state assessments, including test security, updating seating charts, administration practices, and test materials. What does test security monitoring look like? Test sessions shall be scheduled to prevent overcrowding in testing locations. Areas accommodating large number of students should have adequate staff to conduct active monitoring. Testing environments such as arena testing must be adequate in size and arrangement to allow for active monitoring. An adequate number of staff are required to ensure that monitoring circulating can be done in the room. Active monitoring at all times during a state administration is the test administrator's responsibility. Checking emails, grading papers, etc. does not allow for active monitoring. It is the responsibility of principals and district assessment coordinators to ensure that proper monitoring occurs. What is appropriate and active monitoring? Testing staff occasionally walking up and down the aisles of the room, staying visual at all times, and ensuring technology is not being used by students. Other vital considerations are essential to active monitoring, such as test administrators must be careful not to influence or take ownership of student responses. This may require suspending some actions that are routinely done during instruction. It is acceptable to advise all students before testing begins and at the 5-minute warning to do such things such as double check their work, look for items that they may have forgotten to answer, and mark answers clearly by completely filling in the circle. Test administrators should ensure that students are in the appropriate area of the test booklet and student response books at the beginning of each testing session. As part of monitoring, test administrators should ensure that students do not get off track in their work. It is not acceptable to encourage students to edit their responses by providing an evaluation of student work through tone, gesture, or phrase such as "you can do better" or "you can write more." Coaching, editing, pointing out errors or missing answers in the student's work or any test item to improve student score is unacceptable. No one at any time is to alter student answers. Doing so could lead to sanctions by the Educational Professional Standards Board. Changing student answer doesn't solely mean physically altering, but also means such things as leading, coaching, or giving answers. Interval or restroom breaks are at the discretion of the school or district and held between test sessions. Refreshment breaks are acceptable. However, materials must be collected, secured away from the student, and the students should be monitored at all times. For example, if students take a stretch break, the materials need to be collected and secured. If students are standing, the view of all test materials is blocked, allowing for pictures to be made of test materials. If the school or district has approved interval or restroom breaks, the length of time refreshment served and the monitoring of students must not affect testing integrity in any way. It is advised to schedule tests to avoid conflicts with lunch. However, if a lunch break is required during testing, lunch shall be brought to the student's testing area. Suppose there is too many students for this to reasonably be accomplished. In that case, test materials shall be secured and students shall be escorted to the lunchroom, told not to discuss the test, significantly monitored to prevent discussion of the test items during the entire lunch period, and then escorted back to the testing area. We saw how to create seating charts during the test preparation activities. Now it's time to test. What do we do with those same seating charts? It is time to update your seating charts. During the assessment, it is vital that seating charts you created during the assessment preparation be updated with current testing information. The seating chart will need to be kept on file in case it is required later if questions arise. During the administration of state assessments, it is important to consider best practice on timing, accommodations, testing order, testing materials, and student behavior. Let's look closely at what the regulation says about these best practices. Following testing times are essential for a reliable testing administration. Students who miss or leave a test session due to reasonable circumstances, such as illness, doctor's appointments, family emergency, may pick up in the next item and use the remaining time allotted during a makeup session. Test administrators should note the balance of time remaining for the students leave during a testing session. The student cannot return to previously answered items. Students who leave a test session for unwarranted circumstances, such as not returning after a restroom break, may not complete the test part being administered at the time he or she left. Student absences must be excused for valid reasons, such as absences caused by student illness or injury or severe family or personal circumstances to participate in makeup testing. Principals should determine whether or not the absence is legitimate. KDE recommends that students test with their peers following an absence. Makeup sessions should be done for the missed test parts as soon as possible. For legitimate absences, students are allowed to pick up the first unanswered item and be allowed the balance of the allotted time to complete the test session. Students should not work on any item that were already completed prior to their absence. All testing sessions end at the end of the school day. When scheduling test sessions, ensure that the students has adequate time to finish the session or do not begin the test session. Principals should work with BACs, Director of Special Education, teachers, and accommodation providers to ensure everyone understands how to provide accommodations. The routine delivery of instructional services is another way of saying what regularly happens in the classroom. For example, if a student has not used speech-to-text throughout the school year, testing time should not be the first attempt at using them. Accommodations are to give students access, not an advantage. They also should not give an advantage or disadvantage to other students. Scribing for a student would be an example of an accommodation that would interfere with the administration of the assessment to other students. In a scribing situation, a student will be giving his or her answers orally, and other students could overhear. Students who receive extended time as part of the service plan are allowed to test with peers who do not receive ample time during the regularly timed session. To use their extended time, those students must move to another location and begin the extended time portion of their test session immediately. The amount of extended time allowed should be in accordance with the IEP 504 plan or PSP. The Admissions and Release Committee determines if it's time and a half, or double time. Where appropriate, assistive technology should be considered for use during instruction so that it may be available during testing. Assistive technology lowers the number of humans needed to provide accommodations. However, a shortage of personnel occurs. The test schedule can be altered to meet student needs. Changing the testing schedule due to a shortage of personnel for providing accommodation does not mean changing the testing order. All elementary schedules within the same district can be different. For example, one fourth grade can have a different schedule from the fourth grade down the road. All fourth grades within the same school must have the same testing schedule. The district testing window is the same for each grade level, elementary, middle, and high school. The only situation where it is acceptable to change the testing order is when a student needs to make up a test session. Allegation alert. On Monday morning of the first testing week, you receive your testing tickets and seal codes folder. The folder contains reading. However, from reading the TAM, you realize that the Quality of School Climate and Safety Survey is to be given first. You call the back, who states to go ahead and test with the reading while the test tickets are printed for the survey. This would be considered an allegation of altering the order in which they appear in the TAM and test booklets. As best practice, check the folder immediately for the correct materials and delay the start of testing if you find you have the wrong materials. If the schedule must be changed for staffing reason, remember the test sections must still be administered in the order in which they appear in the test booklets. Rulers may be kept after testing for future instruction. DACs and BACs should ensure that test administrators distribute the rulers provided with the current testing materials and do not use materials from a previous year's administration. The rulers and reference sheets are yours to keep following testing. Please do not modify the ruler by trimming off the end so that the zero is now at the end of the ruler. Learning to read and use a ruler properly is part of the test. Alternate assessment manuals contain specific instructions for altering, modifying, and working with alternate materials. With online testing, students should only use tools provided in the online platform unless they have been approved accommodations. Test administrators do not have to wait for an incident to happen during testing to arrange for a student to test in a different location from his or her peers. This is considered a local arrangement. An IEP 504 or PSP is not required for this adjustment. It is essential to secure testing materials before, during, and after state assessments. What does the regulation say about reporting test material concerns? Errors or expected errors in test materials should be reported to KDE. The errors may be noticed while monitoring, scanning for good faith effort, or reported by students. It is acceptable for test administrators to read an item reported by a student to understand what should be communicated to KDE. At no time should secure information be communicated through unsecure means. Neither email nor texting is considered secure. If discussion pertaining to secure information is required, appropriate school or district staff are to be notified to arrange for a personal meeting. Only non-secure identifying information should be shared in writing with the appropriate school or district staff. The information shared can be with BACs first for them to forward to DACs, or the information can be sent directly to KDE. Any written information should only be an essential non-secure item identifying information. For example, KSA, Grade 7, Form 3, Math, Item 26 does not have a correct answer choice. Teachers should not discuss items with colleagues during or after the test session. Reported problems or concerns must be relayed to the appropriate school or district staff. It is time for our fifth check for understanding. I'll give you a couple minutes to read through these questions and then we'll discuss the answers. Okay, number 1, is it acceptable to indicate to a student the appropriate work area in the test booklet or answer response booklet after a testing session has begun. Yes, it is acceptable to indicate to a student the appropriate work area in a test booklet or student response booklet after testing session has begun. Report the incident to the building assessment coordinator, who will then provide further details. Administering test sections in the order in which they appear in the test booklet, with students of the same grade being simultaneously tested in the same content area and test session in a given school. Number 2, is it acceptable to point out to a student that he or she probably hasn't written enough for a constructive response? No. It is not acceptable to point out to a student that he or she probably hasn't written enough for an extended response. It is not acceptable to encourage students to edit their responses by providing evaluation of the student work. Number 3, is it acceptable to allow a student a few more minutes beyond the stop time to finish an exam if he or she has been working diligently? No, it is not acceptable to allow a student a few more minutes beyond the stop time to finish an exam if he or she has worked diligently. It is acceptable for a test administrator to observe any time limits and follow the specific directions in the provided manuals. At times, this may vary with different assessments due to a variety of reasons. However, the overall general rule is that unless otherwise stated in the TAM or training of a specific assessment, it is not acceptable to allow a student a few more minutes beyond the stop time. Number 4, which of the following are good active monitoring practices during a test session? Select all that apply. A, observing the room from the sides, and C, walking up and down the aisles. Test administrators should circulate through the testing site during testing. Principals and district administrators shall ensure that proper monitoring occurs. This concludes modules 5 of 6 of the Administration Code Regulation. Please review all 6 modules to complete the Administration Code training. If you have questions, please contact us at KDE DAC Information, dacinfo@education.ky.gov, or give us a call at 502-564-4394. Thank you for participating in this section of the training with the Office of Assessment and Accountability.